if something's not getting done, the person that should do that is government, because government's always been real good for everything, right? Do you remember in Godfather Part 2, they're sitting there having the birthday cake for Hyman Roth, and they're sitting out in the sun, you know, it goes, finally down in Cuba, we have what we've always wanted. Government and business together. You know? Show that I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. We're gonna grab my phone and head toward it.
Are you sure it's not in your?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Okay.
I think this is going. I gotta get it set up. Right.
I believe Colleen purchased a recorder.
That's excellent. That's great. I gotta make sure it's working.
I think it's going. Let's see.
I think we're recording also.
Yeah, I got it going.
It's also, at least I think I did it right. I don't want that. Go that way, man. 3 minutes. Real quick.
Put this in order.
Get signing sheets for the speed.
Just sign in for those and we'll return those in.
I'm sorry.
You just sign the sign-in sheet. You can sign the logo. Yes, sir, if you want to. Are you going to speak?
Depends.
Okay.
But it's
There.
possible, yes.
Yes, sir. This will probably come up. It's good.
I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. That's not super hot. And I looked at my truck and it said 96. I was on Market Street yesterday afternoon and mine showed 97. So, right.
Yeah.
You know, 91, 92 is 20 miles an hour. And you got 78% of the winter.
Wanted to point this out to all the board members before we get started. That this was, there was some information last meeting that was asked for in connection with TCDRS retirement stuff.
Right.
And a couple of those things were sent out in email. I just wanted to highlight that highlight. Just read that.
Do you?
Yeah. Okay, just
Yeah.
that in connection with your duties here, it's all good to go. You just can't, if you talk about it, you can go to closed session. You know what I'm saying?
Can you, speaking of, can you, there should be a resolution or an agenda item where we.
This was sent, that was sent.
Yeah.
That was sent in an email. I just want you to be careful with this information.
Could you find me, since we're following up, could you please find me the meeting in the minutes where we approved going from 10 years to 5 years on the vesting?
Oh, I don't know that I have that in front of me.
Okay, I know that. I didn't, but I mean, I looked back and I tried to find it in the meeting minutes and I could not.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if it was in
It would have had to be
2018, 2019. It might have been 2020.
2019 because it started in 2020.
Okay, well, there you go.
So I just knew, I couldn't find it in any of the. Couldn't find it. So,
How are you doing, Jack?
Oh, well, thank you.
If you will give me your agenda, I will open it for you. There.
Hello, Ms. Quattlebaum.
Excuse me.
Everybody be here for
Michaela said that she would not be able to make it because she has school board stuff this week.
Ms. Quattlebaum, this was a piece of information that was sent out to the email to everybody, you know, that was requested between the last meeting and this meeting. But I want to make sure that you read that.
We got it.
You read the last part?
Yes, I sure do.
So if you want to talk about it, it's not a problem, you just have to go into closed session so that you don't accidentally,
Gotcha.
you know.
Okay.
Not public information.
Right, exactly.
So, that's here. Right, well, let's put it out there. Sir.
Was going to mark through, have no discussion interest in 2 or 3, that's what this is much on. Just
That's fine, yes, sir. So, all right, I'm gonna start out by a prayer that will call the meeting to order. We do have a form, but I say for the first. Dear Lord, today we approach you with the normal things that folks in government approach you with. However, today I'd like to ask a special consideration for Aaron Barrera. He's a good young man. He is struggling. You know what's going on better than us. But if you could find it in your will, sir, please return him to us in good health, as he has many years of service ahead of this community. And please pray for this family, pray for their country. Amen. Okay, call to order. It is now 5:02. And we are, I'm calling this meeting to order. Agenda item number 1. So citizens to be heard. At this time, comments will be taken from the audience on any subject matter that is not on the agenda and on any issue under the jurisdiction of the board. Each member of the public who appears before the Aransas County District Board of Directors shall be limited to a reasonable amount of time decided on by the board chair. Please note, in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, directors may not discuss or take action on any item that is not on the agenda. All right. So number 2. Consider impossible action on board policy relating to Aransas County District contracts with third-party vendors and outside professional services. Would you please give them those? Would you like to speak on it?
No, sir, I wasn't speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just wanted 5. Actually, let's go ahead and get to it. Yes, sir. I didn't know that. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I don't see a mention here, I didn't hear you mention, I don't see it in writing, I don't see
Sir,
minutes.
could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mr. Peck, my name is Jack Wright. I live at 418 Cherry Hills, been a resident of this county for 28 years. I see no mention of minutes to be reviewed here. I don't remember in the last 3 meetings any mention of minutes that were taken or that were approved. And I do know that based upon that, this meeting is a matter of fact an illegal meeting going forward. You can't start a meeting until you cover what happened in the last one, unless you just plan to ignore it. Is that what you want to do?
Sorry.
Incidentally, a little curious as to why you chose to move it here from a place that has recording instruments, that has the ability to share it to the people that want to look in on it. You move it to a place where you don't have anything. I don't know that you're recording it. I have it on pretty good faith that at least 2 meetings that were conducted here weren't being recorded. Mr. Hunt, you have a responsibility to the community to play by the rules. So where are your minutes? You can respond to that, sir. It's a yes or no question.
This is a special meeting, it's not a regular meeting, we'll have the minutes when we have the regular meeting.
Okay, then I'm asking you with the public information request, if you want it in writing, I'll fill it out. I want to see the minutes from every meeting that's been held here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Point of information, up until today, the secretary of board responsible for minutes has actually been
Anna Marshall.
okay. Any communication from her regarding the minutes?
No, sir, that's not.
Do we have any power to compel an elected official to produce minutes?
No, sir. we're not going to do it.
That's even a bit problematic.
Thank you.
Well, if I may.
No, sir, you may not. Moving on to.
You have to appoint someone to fill that role.
Somebody has been appointed. Thank you, sir. It happened last time.
And what
point
meeting
of order.
did that happen last?
Sir. So moving on to resolution A, I've come up with, looking through quite a few of the contracts we have, the one that we saw that was signed for TWIA last, this June when it came out to our emails. It wasn't presented before the board. We also have, and I was going back and looking through the emails and looking through the contracts, and I found a contract that we signed on signed on December 19th, 22 with Pritchford and Abbott. It was a contract, just to my point, it was a contract that we was for over $50,000. The contract itself read here, if you look at page 9, I don't have the whole contract, I didn't print it out, but y'all have it in your emails. It says, well, it's a contract that says, section D on 4, the execution of this contract is authorized by proper resolution duly adopted by the directors of the appraisal district and is duly approved by the chief appraiser. And it's a contract that was signed on the 19th, by then, 19th December 22, by then for Chairman Jack Wright, Anna Marshall, and signed by the chief appraiser. It's for over $50,000. And I didn't see any sort of bid process going through. I didn't see any sort of vote on it one way or the other in the minutes. Mrs. Cordovan, could you please get me copies of all the minutes so that we can have those going forward in one place? And what I wanted to do, so we would not have this issue coming up any farther, I have a resolution, and it's a pretty simple. How you doing, Mr. Weinberg? You want to see right here? Just sit by. I have a resolution, and it goes, and it says, if you guys want to read it, I don't need to read it to you, but I'll read it out to the minutes. Resolution prescribing specific actions of the chief appraiser relating to Aransas County Appraisal District contracts with third-party vendors and outside professional services. Whereas the Aransas County Appraisal District is charged by Texas Code to appraise property and perform other functions authorized or required by law. And whereas the Texas Tax Code 603A1 requires each appraisal district be governed by a board of directors. Whereas Tax Code Section 605A requires each appraisal district to establish an appraisal office, and whereas Texas Code 605C requires the appraisal district board of directors to appoint a chief appraiser to serve at the pleasure of the board of directors as chief administrator of the appraisal office, and whereas the Texas Tax Code Section 605H authorizes that the board of directors of the appraisal district by resolution may prescribe that specific actions of the chief appraiser relating to the finances or administration of the appraisal district are subject to the approval of the board, and therefore here's a resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that on this date below, the board of directors of Aransas County Appraisal District resolves the chief appraiser of the Aransas County Appraisal District must receive approval from the Aransas County Board of Directors before entering into or renewing any contract with third-party vendors or outside professional services. So my reasoning partially between this is it's the second whereas gives the chief appraiser the right to basically hire professional staff, and that if there's a contract that needs to be signed by the board, by the appraisal district, it needs to be passed by the board. Is that pretty clear and simple? All right. You have any questions?
We have a motion.
No, we don't have a motion. Would you like to make a motion?
Consider possible action.
Yes.
To vote.
I read it. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Oker, would you like to add
I
anything?
make a motion to consider and possible take action on the board policy relating to Aransas County Appraisal District contracts with third-party vendors and outside professional services.
I said, right, so we got, okay, we got it. Now
Now
it's
we're
open
for
discussion.
discussion.
It's open discussion. I'll defer to you on this.
Do we know how many contracts the appraisal district enters into over a given year? We tried to get that together and sent that out to everybody, recently. If you ask me to quantify them, the biggest contract is with our CAMA software. Harris Govern is the biggest one. Subsequent to that, it's probably Pritchard Navitt. I'm not looking at the numbers, but then.
Ballpark, we're talking like 5, 10, or 100, 1,000.
No, it's 5 or 10. And the next one would be Pritchard Navitt Pictometry, which is our aerial imagery. So Pritchard Navitt does our mental CAMA software is Harris Govern. Pictometry imagery is our Eagle View is our pictometry imagery. And then we have a few, like BIS does ancillary CAMA software / forms that are required that we need. They also do our website presentation. There's a little bit of GIS in there. There's also deeds processing through Harris Govern, which they do take our deeds and then they process those deeds. And then there is a few little contracts with Trepp and CoStar. That's data collection, and they just give us. It's kind of like a subscription, but it's a few little ones. So on the order that you described, yeah, it's 5 or 10. You know.
Okay, that's one question.
And this is just basically saying, anytime I get a new contract, don't want to vet it, I'm A-okay with that.
That was gonna be my question, if you had any concerns.
Nope, not at all.
This one before is a singular example, but it's a 4-year contract, so are most of them multi-year contracts? I mean, because a lot of these things,
They're broken out into individual chunks. The way it's been handled in the past, I'll just answer it generally this way. Every time I get a contract, I shoot it off to my the attorney just to vet that the contract is not binding either the district or the board or future board to any kind of try and protect us. And so, but absolutely, if y'all want to look at it before, you know, or if you want to be on the line to where you sign the contract, I'm good for that as well.
Are there any contracts that you have that have come across your desk or across your office, like through your office, that are time sensitive? Do we need to cook into this resolution something that says if the board fails to meet within 60 days of presentation with the chief appraiser?
I don't know. Do you know of anything that's come in recently? I know that typically this time of year, let me put it this way. Typically in the month of April and May, these companies are giving you their estimated budget, but they don't necessarily give you the contract at the same time. Those come at various times. And so if you're making this adopted here, I'll just say that I'll submit to this. And so if I receive one after today, I'll just give it to you, let you read it. And if you want to sign it and you want a chairman or any representative from the board, I'm okay with that as well.
Okay, yeah, because I just don't let that be a problem moving forward. I'm pretty available, you know, for meetings, so there's really not chunks of 30 or 45 days that I'm available. But, you know, different people have different commitments, and so I just want to make sure that we don't get in a situation where we're hamstringing anybody. We want business to flow. Should we put in something that says, like a 30-day, the board doesn't meet in 30 days?
If I can just weigh in, like the contracts that are currently in place take us all the way through the end of the year. So we're good. I mean, if I get a new one, I'm gonna hand it to you.
Okay, and we can just anticipate, or we can just moving forward as we get them. If that does become a problem, we can revisit this.
Absolutely.
So, any other discussion?
So recommendation that when you make your like call and you for vote, that you actually say the name resolution and call it out. You just identify it. That's all.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. We have a motion and a second, right?
Yep. Do we have a motion?
The motion. I'll make a motion to adopt.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 08082024A, resolution prescribing specified actions of the chief appraiser relating to Aransas County appraisal district contracts with third-party vendors and outside professional services.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Two copies. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, consideration of policy board relating to Aransas County Appraisal District engagement with general counsel. I have here a resolution number 080824B, resolution prescribing specific actions of chief appraiser relating to Aransas County Appraisal District, interaction with legal counsel. This came up as a result of the legal kind of questions that we've had. Actually, let's go ahead and do it. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to put this on the table?
We make a motion to consider and possible action of board policy relating to Aransas County appraisal district engagement with general counsel.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so if you give you guys a second to read it, and I'll read over it.
Well, it's being read. I want to show something. I showed something to each of the board members. Kevin, you came a little bit late. This this comes up during the meeting, I just want you to read and understand this portion. This was delivered as a request from the last meeting, and it was tied to TCDRS information. I just want you to read the highlighted area and understand it. So that if you wanted to discuss specifically that information, my recommendation is go in closed session. Okay?
So I'll read this. You got it? Okay, so I'll read it aloud. Okay, resolution prescribing specific actions of Chief Appraiser relating to Aransas County Appraisal District interaction with the council. Whereas the Aransas County Appraisal District is charged by the Texas Code to appraise property and perform other functions authorized or required by law. And whereas the Texas Tax Code, section 603A1, requires each appraisal district to be governed by a board of directors. And whereas Tax Code section 605J authorizes the board of directors of the appraisal district, authorizes the may employ a general counsel to the district to serve at the will of the board. The general counsel shall provide counsel directly to the board and perform other duties and responsibilities as determined by the board. Whereas the Texas State Code, section 605C states that the chief appraiser may employ and compensate professional, clerical, and other personnel as provided by the budget, with the exception of a general counsel to the appraisal district. And now therefore be it resolved on this date shown below, the board of directors of the Aransas County Appraisal District resolves that the chief appraiser of the Aransas County Appraisal District is only empowered to interact with legal counsel of any kind pursuant to his employment on legal matters related to appraisal protest under Texas Tax Code Section 41 and Texas Tax Code Section 42. The only exception to the prohibition is with written approval from the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors or chairperson of the Board of Directors. That was my attempt to be low, but chairperson, but chair. Yes, sir.
I have questions. So, the way I read this is that, let's see, on this date, the Board of Directors of the Aransas County Appraisal District resolves that the Chief Appraiser of the Aransas County Appraisal District is only empowered to interact with the legal counsel of any kind pursuant to his employment on legal matters relating to appraisal protests under 41 and 42. What about other questions that I have with the rest of the property tax code?
So give me an example of a question.
Well, I'm just saying any other part, I'll just leave it at that, because there's section 41 and 42 deal with specific ones. What if it was 606, chapter 6, what if it's chapter 23? There's questions that come up all the time that I don't have an infinite knowledge of how it relates to the law, and I have questions. Is this saying that I can't pick up the phone to ask those questions? Is that what you're implying here?
Without either the approval of the board or directly from the chairperson.
Okay, so then my response to that would be, every single time that I have a question about a legal matter in regard to the Texas Property Tax Code, I'm having to call you first.
What other sections
Well,
outside of this? If you could, I know.
I'm not gonna
If you
say
could just tell me what sections, then I could.
every other section of the property tax code.
What other sections of the tax code?
I just answered the question, Mr. Hutt. Every other section required.
But there's the tax code is big, and all doesn't apply to property. So
The property,
your job.
no, sir. No, sir, that's not correct. The Texas Property Tax Code applies to specifically the appraisal of property and every legal implication that could be. I'm gonna say this out loud. I'm not an attorney, and I take great caution when I make decisions in the administration of the appraisal district. I have a staff that might run across things that has questions. Are you asking me to stop what I'm doing and ask for permissions before I pick up the phone? Is that what you're asking in this resolution? Because what I would say to that is that I think that's very impractical. And I think it would, if you're looking for, like, the last thing that you brought up, Mr. Ocker, was, we don't want to slow things up in the operation. What this is implying would slow up the operation, because every time I have a question that I don't know the answer to, and I'm not perfect, but I've been at this for a long time. And so I have a resident knowledge of certain things. Oh, we did that this way last time. This section of the law applies. Or, oh, you remember this time where it went from a man and wife, and then it went to the wife through a divorce. And how do we apply that section of the law regarding exemptions? There's multiple. So I'm not going to point to every single one. I'm going to say that if you exclude any portion of the law, I'm going to say that I'm not an attorney and I may not know the answer. And if you're asking me to pick up the phone to ask for permission to pick up the phone, I have to pick up the phone to you to ask for permission to pick up the phone. I would say that would, on a daily basis, hinder our operations. I can do it. I'm telling you, it would be a huge hindrance.
How many times a day do you pick up the phone and call the lawyer?
Well, I don't have knowledge of that in front of me.
How many times?
I just answered. You asked a question. I said, I don't know.
Give me a guesstimation.
No, sir, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, so
Because
assume that means you don't do it very often.
No, I didn't say that either,
Well,
Mr. Hyde.
you can't give me an answer.
Why? Can somebody help me out here? He asked a question, I answered the question. I don't have the information in front of me. No, sir, you don't, Mr. Hyde.
Yes, sir. I am the chair of the board. I have the chair. I give you the ability to speak, and I take the ability away. I am now giving the ability to Mr. Oker, not Oker. Yes, sir.
I lost my train of thought there. I was trying to get it back on track. I have not had an opportunity to peruse the buildings, the legal buildings from the last meeting. Is there anyone here to provide me with information as to the frequency of what Mr. Soto is discussing? Because we have 6 months snapshot, but we have it. Okay, so can anybody help me out on that? What is the frequency of these conversations with council? And it doesn't have to be exact. This is not,
I'd say several times a week. I wouldn't say it's over several times.
Okay, and do we know how many of those conversations would fall outside of the scope of this resolution? Because I would assume that most of the questions are related to ongoing and pending litigation. Is that fair to say?
No, sir. No, sir.
So,
I just gave you a general example of when we come across something that we don't know, we ask before we proceed. Because if we proceed before we know, we could harm the property taxpayer. We could harm them. If we don't do it, if we don't follow the property tax code, we could harm them. And there are things in the property tax code that I don't fully understand because I'm not an attorney.
no one on earth does.
And to that point, furthermore, there has been recent legislation that appraisal districts around the state are trying to vet out, and how does this work in relation to that thing or this thing. I can't put an example for you, but I know that there's multiple things that exist that are there. There is a portion of the legal counsel that is specifically tied to litigation, arbitration, SOA hearings, or advice in relation to value defense for an ARB season, which is chapter 41. Okay, so, but then there's chapter 25 that deals with properties after the certification date. And those have a different, there's a different set of rules. And there's things every year, there's things every season that come up that are brand new. And I've been at this for a long time. I'm just saying that if you want this to happen, it's within your power to do so, right? I'm just giving you the caution that it would be problematic, because I'm going to be calling Kevin, or I'm going to be calling Matt, I'm going to be calling, Jeff, or I'm going to be calling somebody on the board. Can I call this person? Well, can you describe that to me? Yeah, I can tell you what I'm going to ask. That's not a problem. there's no problem in doing that before I call the attorney. But if the answer is gonna be, hey, I don't think you need to call the attorney for that, then I would say, then we, meaning myself as the representative for the district, the chief administrator for the district, and you, or anybody on the board that would say no to that, then we would just have a disagreement, because I wouldn't have brought up the question had I not had a question.
So in other words, if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is there could be an onset of paralysis, if you will, from your position, if you have a legitimate question and you're unable to move one way or the other. Is that kind of what?
Yeah, there are forks in the road where you can say, okay, if I deny this, I'm just making this up, and I am giving you a hypothetical. If I deny this exemption because of X, Y, Z, is there something that in this part of the code that I've never considered applies to this, that attorney knows, because he's been at this not only a long time, but representing multiple districts. So my data set, if you want to think about it, my data set is here, right? Everything within this 20-year experience that I have. His experience is 20 years times 15 or 20 appraisal districts. Oh, that question was asked over there, so now he knows the answer for this appraisal district over here. I'm saying it could be problematic to a large degree.
Okay.
So that is my caution to the board.
All right. So I was not a person that drafted this, nor was I consulting in drafting it. So I guess I'm kind of curious as to what are we trying to accomplish here? Can you give me some background?
Well, the idea was that we're going to set some parameters that would say, like, we're going to consolidate our legal fees. They're obviously high. Okay, consolidate into that. Certain things such as open records requests and other things like that should come to us, I felt, as our board. So if there's an open record request that comes to the district.
And as of right now, that's being forwarded to?
It's not coming to us at all.
It's being forwarded to the legal counsel?
To the legal counsel. Okay. And before that goes to the legal counsel, I think it should come to us to decide, how we want to treat that under the exam. Okay.
I'd like to weigh in on that whenever it's.
If somebody sends us an open records request, I don't want that open record request to needlessly have to go to an attorney. Okay. Or I don't want it to needlessly be held up for a reason to prevent people from getting it. Everybody should know exactly what we do and how we do it. Transparency is it. That those type of informations about those type of questions that we have, all those type of questions need to be able to come to us first and we decide, not for Mr. Soto to decide that he wants to engage the lawyer and ask those. Like I understand that he needs to have been able to answer certain questions, though. I do think that, if you have a question about the tax code, and it's about how you apply it, you should use your best judgment and apply the benefit of the citizen. That's just it. But I'm not a lawyer. But my second thing is just for that we limited the amount of conversation we have, we lower the bills, and we kind of put some way, because we budgeted 40 and we went to 115. We budgeted 45 and we went to 105. So we need to have some sort of mechanism by which to keep these down and to know when you're starting to get a lot of them and how they're just not, out of that is your question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the wisdom of expanding the language in here that is permissive to include any questions related to the tax code. Again, I wish I knew all of the background so I could understand what's trying to be ferreted out. I do hear what Mr. Soto is saying, and I give you a credence there. I hear what you're saying, and I understand both sides of that. And so I think for me, I would like to see an expansion to encompass the entire tax code. Is that really something that we need to give permission to? I don't know, I don't see that as being problematic. I think as far as if, you know, we don't want to give a blank check to anyone, you know, in my corporation, I would give a blank check to my CEO to engage an attorney to learn how to, you know, systematically destructure the corporation or something. I know I'm using an extreme example, but I just think an expansion of the scope on the permissive side is probably in order.
Would if it were to say related to the Texas tax code?
So I think some of the language here is pretty good. Legal matters related to Texas Tax Code Section 41 and Texas Tax Code Section 42. I think that we should follow that possibly with another sentence that reads, let's see, the ability of the chief appraiser to access legal counsel also extends to general questions that are found to have connection to the entirety of the tax code. Something of that nature. Would that kind of encompass what you're talking about?
So there's a couple of things. Yes, thank you. There was a couple of things. As far as like open records requests, the vast majority of open records requests do not go through the attorney. Do not. Okay. They are just, hey, can I have the certified roll? No problem. I don't pick up the phone. I just give them the certified roll. Can I have every address in this neighborhood? Just give them the information. There are many things that we just have access to. There's no confidentiality considerations. And then there are things that there are confidentiality considerations for which there are standing and pending AG rulings at the state level. And so in those situations, that's where I just defer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to flesh that out. I'm going to have somebody that tells me, yes, you can give all of this with the exception of that. Okay, that's the attorney's opinion. I'm going to do that. Now, if you wanted to compartmentalize a cost savings, and that's what I'm hearing, right? It's cost savings, right? If you want to compartmentalize, hey, Mike, every month your minutes are cut off at whatever. Use the last year to try to come up with some formula. And if, let's just say, I'm making this up. Let's just say it was 100 minutes a month. And you wanted that a reduction of 20%. You'd say, okay, Mike, it's 80 minutes per month. Be very exacting on when you pick up the phone. It will make me think, because as soon as I run out of my minutes, then I have to pick up the phone and ask one of you, can I exceed my minutes this year? If you want to do something like that, I don't know that it's a resolution that you do. I don't know how you do it, but I need you to really understand that when I have a question, I don't just proceed. Just like I'm not a police officer and I just don't exercise that facet of the law either. I just don't.
So my thinking on something like this, if we're thinking cost savings, and that's where we're leading with this, to allow business to flow without having to get us involved every single time something came up. Yeah, along the lines of a time thing. Like if the attorney's only gonna bill 15 minutes or half hour, I'm assuming they bill in a quarter hour. If they're only gonna bill a quarter or half hour for whatever you're looking for, it's not a big deal. But if like it's gonna go beyond that, we need to step in, because that means they're doing research or they're doing more work that is gonna start costing more. Maybe something along those lines might be effective.
Okay, we looked at the invoice, and that's the invoice. So, go ahead. Would you like to say anything? Add to it.
I personally think, given our discussion here, that we might want to think about setting this on the table for tonight. And maybe coming back to it when we have a little bit more information. Do we even know how we're being billed? First of all, I mean, if we're talking about savings, how are we being billed?
We're being billed on 1/10 of an hour.
on a tenth of an hour.
Every 6 minutes, I guess.
Okay, so when you're saying, you know, if we're being billed even at the 10-minute mark or quarter hour, something like that, it's probably doable. But when we're being, so if the billing is at the tenth of an hour, you know, and I really don't like putting a minute constraint on chief appraiser. Because again, you know, the season varies, and then, so I mean, are we gonna allow, like, can he carry over minutes if you didn't use them this month? I mean, I don't like that idea. I don't like constraining him. I think it's good that he has access to legal counsel. At the same time, to be honest with you, probably my bigger problem is maybe the billing practice of the legal counsel rather than my chief appraiser. Having said that, I don't, at the same time, I can't imagine that, that our attorney, at the same time is, what I'm trying to say is I'm not sure that if this is that excessive, but again, and budget company excluded, but you know, when you just get to sit there waiting for the phone to ring and Mike's phone, ding, ding, billing. So there's, you know, some, when you think about it logically, there's like, you know, logical issues, like how is this happening anyways? And so, we might want to take a closer look at our agreement with our legal counsel.
As I got a letter.
Might be, before, and so I want to qualify that, before we make a decision on this resolution, I'll let clarification.
As you know, you got, I think, a forward everybody. But the amount from the lawyer saying that we do not have any letter engagement, that the law firm in 2018 switched over, so there's nothing on record, so we don't have anything. So are you saying that the way we should probably define this is through the lawyer? Possibly.
That's a possibility. I mean, that's.
Sure. Okay.
It does concern me that we don't have. And that, you know, that there might be an open-ended billing there, and in fact, that, so the whole discussion ties back into proper budgeting, so that we are maintaining costs for the entities, but at that same time, not hamstringing our chief appraiser. So there's got to be a happy medium here, but it does concern me that we currently do not have a written agreement with our general counsel. So is this the answer to that? Don't know. Maybe if we had, you know, just suggesting that during this session, we might want to set this to the side
So
for tonight.
you want to put a motion on the table you want to put a motion?
I'll put a motion on the table I'd like to make a motion to table this agenda item to the next meeting.
Also. All right, we have a motion on the table to table the agenda item number 3, resolution number A18/2024. B, do I have Colleen?
All in favor, aye.
All right, it's a table.
May I ask Michael a question for which you might refer something?
No, sir. Okay, let's move on to,
Hold on, Chair. Would it be proper to, I do have a question, that's okay, I know we just.
Yes, sir.
Wait, time out. Robert's rules of order, you can only pick up the table motion after the next, so we have to, that's just
Okay.
Robert's rules start with that. So you gotta go on the 4, you can pick it up after 4. And by the way, just to put it on the record, the reason for Robert's rules is to give them minority voice time to think and time. Okay, that's the whole purpose of these Robert's rules, everybody gets, okay, but that's the purpose, is to give the minority voice, and there's a minority voice usually on each agenda item, so it gives, okay, some time to, but you can bring it back up after agenda item 4.
Sounds good. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item more, it's just for discussion of 2025 reappraisal plan, review of current 2023-24 reappraisal plan, and discussion of available changes. here, if this is, no, that is not. This is what we're working on.
So this is a discussion item, discussing 2025-2026 reappraisal plan,
Yes.
review of the current reappraisal plan, which I think we all have been given a copy of.
Yes.
Discussion of development changes, because we are, so the under discussion, I think we at one time had discussed, trying to get some workshops, has that been fleshed out further, do we have any?
Yeah. I mean, I would like
course of
to.
action, what,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
y'all feel about that? Are there, I'm sure, probably certain sections that are just fine, that don't really need anything, and other sections that might,
Well, the sections that I'm most concerned about,
okay?
and one is our classifications. And I do not feel comfortable doing a plan that does not have classifications within. So currently, we don't have a classification for, say, a trailer pad. I guess when I say, we have a classification, but we don't have the rubrics to say what trailer pad 1 is compared to trailer pad 3, the same we don't have for, there's no rubrics.
So you're saying they're kind of arbitrary?
They're arbitrary. I like to have set, I like to have those set. I also have problems, issues that neighborhoods, the way we have, I'd like to work on getting our neighborhoods better oriented. And I'll give you an example. In the code, we're supposed to take ordinances into account. And so quite a few times our neighborhoods will go across, like towns in from the city into the county. And when we look at those appraised houses, we are clumping, when we go to appraise them, we're clumping them all together. I like to go back and look at the neighborhoods. When I did a appraisal class 2 years ago, there were some people who didn't have a neighborhood. There were those people out in Coconut Bay, the little community out there on Airport Road. A couple of those folks didn't have.
Village?
Yeah, Coconut Village, couple didn't have. So I like that. I like to take the time, go through and look at to make sure that we have our neighborhoods that are divided up. I've spoken with, I can't think of her name offhand. I know Kat Comack at the county. I spoke with David Reed, and he's okay, like having her help us out, look over it. She was actually excited. And then, I can't remember, the lady who was at the city planner was also very excited about helping us look at the neighborhoods. So I'd like to just get a better definition of the way the neighborhoods look. I don't think, number one, I'd like to make sure that we have classifications. 2, and some of the irregularities that we have in just the descriptors of the homes. And this is going to lead to something else. And this is currently we have a classification of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In our current appraisal, and it's the class of homes. In our current appraisal manual, we have a class 4 home, but the class 4 in the picture, the description. However, when we go to in the book, in terms of what's on their appraisal card, it's a class 5. Now, what I want to look at is, I think these classes are bad. I would like to look at an appraisal plan that gets rid of these classes. So homes are just based upon square footage, siding, roof type, things like that, because I think it's an arbitrary descriptor. You might have a house I personally looking over it, I can't see where it goes. I can't see the difference between that. I think if we would remove that, it would be better. And this kind of brings me up to this point. I have spoken with people from Tarrant County. They are not appraising next year, they are appraising in 25. They originally wanted to appraise once every 3 years because they felt it was in the code that allowed it, and they could. The comptroller's office said they could. You still have to pass the exam. But within the law was, they decided to not reappraise every 3 years, but just reappraise every 2 years, because one of the school districts came up, I'm telling you what you already know. It's in the article, the Tarrant, and they, they said that because there was bond issues. So on this reappraisal plan next year, and this, I need to talk to Mike about what happened with Aransas Pass, and I'd like to understand why we failed that. But next year that we don't do a reappraisal, that we leave everything where it is. We spend the entirety of 2025 getting our data straight. I believe our data is correct. And I think that if we spend the course of a year getting it back, we can come back and we can really reassess the property in 2026. However, there is an exception. I would like to do next year, 2025, commercial, multifamily, industrial, and those ones that we did. The only ones lay off to 2026 would be residential and vacant lots. So, I mean, that's the plan I like to put forward. I'd like to have, I do have some questions about business, personal business property. I'd like somebody to look at. I know that we use a depreciation schedule for them. Is that correct?
It depends on what type of business personal property it is. Well, we can either have an inventory schedule, there's depreciation schedules for business items. Renditions are very helpful for property owners when they render value. So it's specific to the type of business that it is. There's inventory value associated with special inventory. So it really depends as far as business personal property.
And I would just kind of off the subject, I apologize for doing. I was asked today, and it's on the appraisal by, I'm not going to out the person. I was asked today if we have fishing guides, if their boats are counted as business personal property.
All the items tied to any business operation, any business personal property is tied to.
Okay.
There's exceptions to that. Like if you have a fleet of properties, you get to and use your first truck. You have 3. You use your first truck for personal and business use. You get to you get one off. But in the operation for a fishing guide, the things that are common are a boat, a trailer, their equipment.
Right.
Those are things. They are.
So my answer is, the answer is I can say yes.
We're trying to get we try to get as many as we can. They're one of the. Let's just say they're not. No, I'm not going to say.
I know that's what I know. And so fishing guy people who watch this, I'm not coming after you. I was just asking a question.
Yeah.
All right, so this is where.
When you mean, if I can just have a point of clarification, when you mean the data is corrupt, what do you mean?
I would love to say. Well, so we started this process in 78, and we have.
When you say we, who do you mean?
The state of Texas.
So
we started this process in 78.
I wasn't involved
anyway,
in 78.
Semantics. We don't need to get into that. So we, in terms of the state of Texas, started this process in 1978, and we've had different people who have put information into the computer. We obviously know that if there's no rubric by which to define something, the data is gonna be put in there based upon somebody's judgment. And that's what I mean by the data is corrupt. I mean, when you have,
Thank you.
to have good data, you need to have good rubrics, you need to have some just determining factors what determines.
So you mean because there's a lack of uniform input, that it's inaccurate?
Yes, sir. And I believe we can spend,
What I would like
to do is we have this appraisal card.
Oh.
We have this appraisal card that
After you, Mr. Hunt, after
we
you.
have this appraisal card that we send out, when somebody protests. And it's the card, and it has the picture, and it has the things of their house, it has a lot of information, we talked about this last time, that you can't get online. What I like to do next year is to spend our time, send out this information with send out this information and say, we are the appraisal district, we're trying better, come to a more fair and equitable appraisal on your property. Can you please make sure that that the numbers that we have are correct, that we have, that maybe we have a chicken coupon here, that we have on the appraisal, a card that we have as a building that shouldn't be, or maybe it's this. And to get that back and to take that information in. And that we can put that information next year. So come January 1st, 2026, we have a really good sort of data in the database to base it on.
So if I understand this reappraisal plan, which I don't think I've ever seen one prior to being presented with this one. While we are prohibited by law from discussing individual appraisals as a board of directors, this is our opportunity as a board to, and I don't want to use this, it's a bad term, but I'm failing it and attempt to find another word. This is our opportunity to somewhat micromanage the office. Do I have that right? It's kind of, we can set parameters that are included in the appraisal plan that kind of direct the staff. Is that a fair assessment of it? That kind of,
As long as we're not having them, as long as we're not having them go against best practices, like we couldn't say,
you must say everyone in this neighborhood is 100,000.
Yes, we could do that. You have to make sure we're following, accepted appraisal practices. We can't be arbitrary.
And like you're talking about the display of documents, some that are inward facing, being forward facing, is that something that's covered by the appraisal plan or reappraisal plan? Or is that, I don't know, wouldn't think so.
That would be us. But my point is that people, we have a population who, a lot of our population is, not to hurt my people, I love them, the Dollar General people. They don't know how to go onto the appraisal record. They don't know how to look at these things. We need to make it available to them, and the best way that we can do is to put something in their hands. What I would like to look at it is, Matt, like when we do federal income taxes, right? We do federal income taxes, which is probably legal. They send us out, we send it into the feds what our salary was. In terms of, I'd like to have an opportunity for people to tell us if we have a mistake, if we have something wrong, the property's not the right size, the house. Yes, ma'am.
I think in general, about the whole discussion of the reappraisal plan is that there were some things online that with technology and the ability for common folk to get online, and then they get their appraisal card, and then they go to the online manual, well, these two don't match. So I think what we're looking at with your appraisal plan in part was me basically to bring it up to date a little bit. It's a matter of transparency to the taxpayer who does have access to it online. And for those things to make sense to that common man, to say, yeah, I get it. I'm a class 3 or 4, whatever, and I go over here and I say, oh yeah, that looks good, okay. And I'm thinking maybe if as a matter of transparency, and perhaps it might make the case that it might reduce the protests. If people don't, log on, get their appraisal card, run to this manual that may or may not be outdated. I'm not saying anything, but And then they get mad. And they're like, well, that's not fair, and my house is, or whatever, brick sided, and it says I have a tin roof and I don't, and so then at the same time, they got this other little paper in their hand that says they protest. So what I'm looking at, the reappraisal plan and whatever the particulars of it are is, it probably does just need to be a little more updated, help it reflect the card that they're also getting, because they have access to it. And if we can kind of, help us bring down the protests and the temperature of the protests and things like that, was what I kind of thought maybe was our overall arching goal of it. And I think we'd also talked about having a workshop or two with some folks involved, and I know Mike already offered maybe an appraiser, maybe if he's willing to meet a couple times with us. Some other folks from the city, from the county, help with neighborhoods and things like that. But I think the whole goal of this was transparency of the appraisal cards to help with the protest process.
Yes.
And yeah, there's a couple of things. So neighborhoods are not always geographic. Sometimes they can look like a jigsaw puzzle. This is all part of the same neighborhood, even though there's interstitial spaces that are not congruent to that neighborhood. That is really driven by market activity, congruency within those properties. Meaning that if you look at a set of properties and it's very much like that other set of properties, they can be half a mile apart, but those two neighborhoods react the same in the marketplace. It's important that when you're doing this reappraisal plan logic process, that you consider that when it relates to neighborhoods. When it relates to the manual, which is what y'all refer to as classification, and we've talked about this several times. The appraisal manual is just a guide. It's an internal guide to the appraisal district. It's been asked and answered, does that thing need to be updated? Absolutely it does. But it's also important to know that there's two different documents. And over here on the one hand, you have the reappraisal plan. And over here, you have the appraisal manual. This is getting in the weeds about classification, maybe some input as far as the income method for a particular type of property or whatever. There's also mineral things that are talked about over here. Over here, this is a general plan on how is this group of people going to accomplish reappraising that geographic area. You need to understand that both the purposes for these two documents are very different. The audiences for both of these documents are very different. So when you're having these discussions in these workshops, just understand that there's a difference between those two. I agree with Board Member Quattlebaum that we need to do a better job of saying, why do we believe that this is what it is? And help people understand that. And secondarily to that is say, we don't want to impede your right. I heard like we want the protests to go down. I don't think that will ever be a thing, but I would hope that would be a thing based on better understanding. I think during the processes of protest hearings and informal discussions, there's an understanding of, okay, we got to this point of congruency and we're still this far apart. So if you still have an issue, this is the remedy. That's okay. Like, we don't have a problem with any of that. And so we don't want to impede on people's rights. At the same time, we do want to help them understand how we do what we do. But just understand, in the grand scheme of things, those two documents are different, right? This reappraisal plan is really, the audience is you, and you're the ones that are actually the promulgators of it. But the audience is, hey, this staff is going to appraise this entire county. Generally speaking, it's going to do it in this fashion. The appraisal manual gets down in the weeds. Just as long as you keep that in your mind, it'll help you proceed when you're doing this endeavor.
So do we deliberate and adopt the appraisal manual?
No.
Where's that come from?
That's like I said, it's an internal document.
Okay.
That's why I meant, that's where they're different. If they're not been, and I will tell you historically, most boards have not gotten this involved with trying to shape a reappraisal plan. So there was one from a long time ago. It's been shaped and changed along the years. But if this board had not been as enthusiastic to be involved, what would have happened? We would have looked at our last reappraisal plan, it had very little change. We would have disassociated, so there was not confusion between the appraisal manual and the reappraisal plan, because in my opinion, they're two different documents for two different purposes with two different audiences. But essentially nothing else other than update our listing for the new neighborhoods that we've incurred from the last 2-year cycle. Maybe because in a reappraisal plan, in a reappraisal problem, you have to define the geographic area that you're going to appraise. And so part of that is in the reappraisal plan. So as long as you keep that in your mind, you can try to disassociate them as much as possible.
Thank you for that, appreciate it.
You bet.
So if you guys could, if you could take a look at the reappraisal plan and let me know if there's any sections that you would like to tackle and you see that you would like to, like I said, I mean, I'm gonna put it up for a vote that we go to a, that we don't reappraise this year, we appraise next year.
That's not on the agenda right now.
No, I'm not saying, but I'm gonna put that, I'm gonna bring that to the board, so that you know.
Did we not reappraise 25?
That we not appraise, not, like I said, not everything for 25, and we reappraise for 26.
Bring it on the agenda. item.
Yes, ma'am.
As a-
I'll bring it first.
Can I bring one final thing, that 25 is a PVS year.
Correct. What does that mean?
That means that the state studies you.
Okay.
And because we're in a failure of APISD, both will be, well, APISD is done in 24. That study's late this fall in 24. We don't have the results until February of 25, but 25 is actual reappraisal year. So we have a PVS study that's promulgated by the comptroller. Just keep that in mind. Again, you know, last time this was discussed, you talked about every 3 years, or every year, every 3 years, every 2 years. I've articulated on the record that I think you should do it every year for information that I described in the last meeting. I still think that that's the case. Having said that, if you were to do this, just keep in mind that 2025 is a PBS year. And so it can be problematic if you skip that intermediate year and you fail this year. You won't have that information until January of 26. And if that's the reappraisal year that you don't intend to do, you don't have any remedy. You have to like think it all through.
So what happens if we fail 2025?
If you fail 2025, you won't know until January, February of 2026. And in either case, it's bad. So let's say in the case that you failed 2025 and you did not reappraise, so you're planning to reappraise in 2026. Well, that's great information. How are you doing that? Because you're doing all of that work in the fall of 25 for a 2026 valuation. And then you get the information that you failed 25, right? You failed 25 in early of 26. So you have a remedy right there. But if it were flipped, you wouldn't have a remedy year. You would have to break your own, you would have to like have a resolution to readopt or to break your own reappraisal plan so that you could do the work in the intermediate year, because in that year, whatever that intermediate year is, they automatically do a reappraisal. They automatically do another PVS study. So in every year that you fail, it triggers the very next year. So it doesn't matter which year, if you're doing a 2-year cycle, it doesn't matter. You can be on either side of that coin and still be in a PVS year just that quick. And you don't know that until February of that next year.
So would that still hold true if we held off one more year?
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't matter on either
26
side of the coin.
Or no?
It does, in my opinion, it doesn't matter because it's on either side of the coin. because you don't know if you've passed this year, let's say 25, let's say we're in 25, right? We're doing a reappraisal in 25. When did we do that work for 25? The answer is fall of 24, we're driving the county like heck. We're picking up every permit we can, we're doing all that work, right? So in 25, what happens in that first quarter? It's all sales analysis. I'm just telling you practically in the ad valorem calendar, this is what actually happens at the appraisal district. So at that time, okay, you're doing 24, 25, okay? So 24, it was not a PBS year, right? So this is what we're doing right now. We can do 25, great. But when we get around to 26, let's say it's not a year. Let's say you did this plan and you want to do it every 2 years. In 26, you get the results for 25. And if you fail 25, they're automatically going to do another PBS that year.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it becomes a.
It's
a perpetuation cycle.
That's exactly right, because you would do it this year. You don't find out if you fail until that next, like January, February. Then you get another year that might or might not be a failure. And if you can't reappraise this year, then you're putting all your weight into this last year. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, you would set the district up for failure, and it doesn't hurt anybody but the school district in that third and final year.
So when you say we failed this still for APISD,
Right.
Did Sam Pat fail it too?
No, APISD failed. The only people that fail are the ISDs. The PBS studies are done on school districts alone.
Right, so the properties that are within APISD but are in Aransas County, that's what failed the study.
That's
What about the ones situated in San Pat County?
They did not fail.
They did fail. Really?
And that was when we went to fight them. When we went to fight the comptroller, you go, look at this value, look at that value. They're very similar. Why did they pass and we failed? You need to understand that we disagreed with the comptroller. We didn't think our values were too low. But what does that trigger? Well, that triggers this year because we failed last year and we didn't know it until February of this year. We went through an appeal that took us all the way through April and May. We lost. So guess what happens? Right now, they're studying us again. And if we fail again, this next year, if we fail, that school district is going to be in a failure state.
So does that mean that when they do what do you call it, APV or whatever?
APISD?
No, the study.
PBS, property value study?
So is that only when you say it triggers for the following year, is that only for the properties located in APISD?
Correct. Only the school district that failed.
So basically, would it be possible to craft a policy that says we have an every other year appraisal except for those properties situated within a jurisdiction in which a PBS study was triggered?
You can, except for the appraisal calendar. So I started with when are we doing the 2025?
Start off in late 24.
That's exactly right. So if you don't have the information until February of the next year, you've already lost that ability to do the work. You know what I'm saying? So just please keep that in mind.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. Didn't mean to dominate. Sorry. Go ahead, sir. Kevin.
What is so you mentioned that the school district is the one that suffers. I get that. How do they suffer? Is it like the state withholds 5% of their funding, or the state doesn't give them any funding?
The way I understand it, there's a person in the public right now that could probably answer this question better than I, because the last time this happened was a few years ago. But the net result of that is it's a different calculation. The state assumes that the locality of that school district did not pay enough in tax. And so they make it up in a one-time shot, and they give this school district a bill, and the school district has to come up with that money. Now, what is the result of that? I think I believe, I don't know, but I believe that the school district just writes a supplemental bill to everybody in that school district. Is that, no? No?
All right, let me, real quick. So I
Okay,
talked to the
you
comptroller
might-
about this.
Yeah.
I talked to the comptroller about this and I asked him this question. The first, if after 3 tests, after 3 of them, if they decide that ours is not the number, they use their number. Their value becomes their number, and that's what you have to pay on. But you have the first time to fail it, and you have a second time to fail it, and the third time you fail it, that's when they apply. I need to make sure I get this straight, and that's when they apply the comptroller's number.
That's correct. So you either have local value, or you have state value. And this question was asked last week or last meeting. How much of the time does that happen where like you can be above or below? How much? It's very high. The percentages are, the state thinks it should be higher. And so whatever this delta is, they calculate the taxable value within that district, within the school district, and the district comes up with the delta. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
I would be happy to tell you 2 things went wrong here.
Yes, sir, please.
First off, we had a business manager that didn't understand fund balance. Fund balance is cash, isn't it?
Business manager for the school? Was a business manager employed by the school or by the district? By the district?
School
Okay,
district.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, so you happy to interject?
No.
Because I told us so many times, I think I've got it memorized. We were a chapter 42 district, not chapter 41 at that time. Our business manager was not counting fund balance cash only. She was counting pieces of chalk and boards and desks and stuff, which is completely out of bounds. We also turned in an estimate of what the student population was going to be and overshot it. So all of those 3 things came down to the fact that we were underappraised, over-student, overfunded by the state. Again, we were a chapter 42 district. We got a bill for $750,000 because our business manager was counting chalk and carpet as fund balance. We didn't have the money to write the check. And so we were allowed to pay it back in an installment plan, and we set about adopting an extremely austere measure. We laid off staff, we did any number of things, but we weren't going to do that mistake again. Following year, we were chapter 41, so all the rules changed. If you don't know what chapter 41 is, that's for another time.
Okay.
Excuse me, you said the time we were a chapter, you said we were a chapter 40 school at the time?
42.
42.
It's kind of backwards, it should be.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Which means we were a recipient district. Is that 42?
meaning we got all our money from the state.
Well, that we were recipient, in other words, we were on the receiving side of a lot of these funds versus the donor side.
No, it's not quite that simple. We did get all of our budget money from the state, but we sent the tax money that was theirs first, and then it came back to us, so it was an equal amount. And now we just send it to them, and they keep it because how much more to go.
Any other discussion?
Okay, is there any other? Yes,
If not, then we'll point of order,
yes, ma'am.
which is to allow Sherman also to pick back up motion item, the motion, back up number 3, if you'd like.
He's not, I'd like to make a point of correction. He's, Mr. Oker is not the chair.
I'm sorry, chairperson. Boards, sorry about that.
Okay, so my only question was on the, sure it's better notes. I think it was on 3 where we were talking about, when we
Yes.
tabled the resolution. My only question is to Mr. Soto, are you, I don't want to micromanage or get, overstep boundaries.
Is this the general counsel stuff? again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I'm just curious, for me, do you have an issue, or does anyone on this board have an issue with, and I'm not even saying just for me, any singular member of this board to engage Mr. Soto on this, so we can have more pinpointed discussion where we're not wasting everybody's time? Is that something you feel comfortable with, or no?
Mr. Lambert is an attorney. I feel comfortable for you coming over and asking me whatever questions you want to ask me. you know, in relation to trying to, if the goal is to try to mitigate some value or mitigate cost, if you have any examples or, hey, do it this way, or let's set up a procedure for that way, I'm all ears. Are you okay for that?
Let's table this for next time.
Okay, so
Well,
I
there you
have
go.
a motion to permanent table, agenda item number 3. Second.
And I second it. All in favor? Okay, now let's move on to the next item, which is, discussion, presentation of first draft of 2025 Aransas County Appraisal, District Budget. Would you want to speak on this one, and would you like your? would you-
I want to hear, and if I find reasons.
Yes, sir.
President.
I was gonna ask you if you want to do that for. Okay, I made a few changes, and I'd like to see y'all's changes too. I came across this in the tax code, and if y'all could please read this. We went to Mr. Soto, and I brought this up to Mr. Soto the other day. It is, it's not this way. Is he there, Mr. Wright? Mr. Wright? So.
Only Mr. Donald Trump was 20 years ago.
Could you, could y'all explain what you're thinking, and I'll before you go into this, I'll go into mine. I believe what this says is that at the end of the year, if we don't spend the money for what we're supposed to spend it on, we are supposed to give that money back to our entities. Is that what y'all think? Okay, so I wanted to make sure that this was the case, and I didn't bring it, and I apologize for not. I did look up Attorney General's opinion on this, and there is an Attorney General opinion that says we can keep anything that we earn outside of that money. So if we, I apologize, I'll email y'all out the Attorney General's is Abbott. But I noticed in our budget, we do see some income. I had a meeting today with Jeff, the auditor guy, and I asked him. So we do have some income coming in every year.
Unassigned funds?
No, we have income that we make. We have, and he showed me $36,000 in income. And I believe some of it comes from the tax office.
Yeah, the majority of it is in the revenue.
Yeah.
19,000, like the actuals, 18,722 and 24, I guess that's an estimate. Data processing, the majority of the 34,000 is 18,722 is their portion of the data processing Canvas system.
Okay, so from what I understand of what I read here, and I understand of the AG's opinion, that money that we can put towards our impact, we can hold in the general fund. Any other monies that we get from the entities that we don't use, we have to give back. There's also, and I didn't print this one out, but there's also something that says if we decide to go more than what we want on one of these, we need to send them a budget adjustment. And I guess my understanding is that they will, I don't know, we need to check this out with them, that they'll give us more money for it if we do a budget adjustment, but we can do a budget adjustment. Apologize, the different taxing entities. We can make a budget agenda, a budget amendment, but we have to send written notice to those entities. So with that being, we have something in the vicinity of, our fund balance right now is somewhere in the vicinity of $482,000. And we have some of that we have some assigned to legal fees, IET, we have some with 3 months operating budget. What I would like to do is to reassign some of these funds as unsigned, to take out $319,171, and that's just the $79. That's just what I have in the idea, and return that money back to the different taxing entities. That would leave us with a fund balance of uncommitted, or committed in our fund balance. It would still leave us with 150,000, I would say, and then whatever revenue we made on top of that this year, we could add back to it. To be honest, I feel a little bit, I don't know how much of that is revenue, how much of that's left over. But I'd like to return that much back this year. I made a couple of other changes to what I'm gonna present at the time. The biggest one is I moved legal services from 144,000 to 50,000. I know that's a big drop. I expect that I'd like to see it settle. I'd like to see us, if we get over that 50,000, we still have money within our fund balance to make if we hit that number, we still have enough money within our fund balance to dip into it for that. Other things that I wanted to make, that I suggested we make changes for, and I'll just go down the line here. Auto expenses, I would rather not pay insurance and pay just pay per mile, like regular businesses do. The board of review expense, I moved, that's just negligible. Building and grounds, the chief appraiser wanted 24,000. I wanted to reduce that to 12,000. The next one down is education, meals, and hotel. The chief appraiser wanted 10,000. I moved that down to 2,000. I know that the county and other people are having people doing online training. I would like to see if we can do as much of this education that we can do online. Postage, things that I've done stayed the same on. Legal fees was big, and I would like to know, of course, we didn't have it anyway, but I'd like to know y'all's input on legal fees and what y'all think it should be. Oh, IT replacement, I kept it at last year's budget, which was 15,000, opposed to the chief appraiser wanted to go up to 25,000. Postage fees, he has 32,000. If we're gonna do a mail out program, there's gonna be more associated with the postal fees, and I wanted to make sure that we had money to cover that.
That number's going to what?
No, it's 30, I kept it at 32,000.
So you're dropping
No,
it.
hold on. No, I basically took out of my mouth there, not 2 seconds.
So you are dropping.
No, that shouldn't be.
Okay.
I do not want to drop that. Okay, the only other thing that I reduced was I looked at utilities, and utilities were running us 10,000, and the chief appraiser wanted to go up to 16,000. Utilities is actually slacked off. We've shown a decrease in our utility costs for some reason. That's what I looked at the we call it the auditor's report. And that's basically the things that I wanted to do. The big things that, I think some of the small things that we can talk about inside, but what I'd like you guys to consider is, one, do you all feel comfortable with us spending down the fund budget, the balance? The way I read it, I kind of feel like we're obligated to, in some extent. I know that the entities are having issues with money and things like that, so I know that they would be grateful with it, at least for this year. And the legal fees, like I said, if we go down to 50 and we find that we need more, we can always make a budget amendment out of our fund balance. So is there any question, Mr. White? First.
Please,
Go ahead.
this is just clarification for the public members who may or may not be here or listening. In governmental work, we do not have income, we have revenue. We're not an income producing entity. We may have some interest income up that gets absorbed back into banking fees, but just a point of terminology, we don't have income. They're revenue. They just don't.
I have one question before discussion starts. So just, again, this is your,
Yes,
I just wanted a summary. Yeah,
I was just reading off the things that mine only
Okay,
is.
it's just discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
So in light of the items that you just described, what would the total expense be? Did you do that, Matt?
No, the total expense that I've had, and I believe it, I'm not too sure, so I'm just not down. The total expense, no, I can't give it to you because I've actually wrote things down here that I found out today.
Okay, it's
that
okay.
don't take into account. I didn't.
My only other comment is that, you can, absolutely, as a board, give, money back as far as committed funds. You can change those amounts as a board. I would caution you when you do those. Those have been a long-standing thing. It's just held there. When you do that, you don't really affect this budget. You just leave the budget, whatever you changes you want. Let's say you change this budget by $80,000. I'm just making that up. Then you would still present this, and you would, in my opinion, the board would approve that budget, whatever budget you come up with. And then in another resolution, again, with caution, find out how much you actually have. And in a resolution, just give the money, you can give the money back if you want to. I don't know what that number is. I know that Jeff said that he spoke with the auditor. So I guess I'm gonna have a conversation with the auditor just to make sure that, like, are we sure that we're talking about the same line item, that kind of thing? Because when Jeff and I spoke the other day, I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure of these numbers. So
we only know what it was on only the fund balance that I know is what it was on December 31st, 2023. I do not know what our fund balance is. My understanding is that if we have not made any budget amendments this year, so that our fund balance should be at what it was at December 31st, because December 31st took into account, say, some outstanding things that we have.
And I'll agree with Mr. Hutt. This board, your board can actually do a budget amendment at a later time. Like, let's say that you're real tight here, you can ask for money later. Just be cautious is what I would say. Just use caution. These committed fund balances have been in place for a long time, and they're there for a very explicit purpose. Just be cautious and just get all the information before you do a resolution, would be my caution.
Do you know the last time fund balance was accessed for any amount and the last time for a significant
Yes,
amount?
there's been some resolutions in the past where there were excess funds and there were board resolutions. I don't have it in front of me, but generally speaking, those boards acted on, oh, we have this much money left over. the sale of the land where our old building used to be. That went into what's called a Hurricane Harvey rebuild fund. And so that money went into, but you just have to do it through a budget amendment. You have to do it through a budget resolution. Hey, we have excess funds, entities, we plan to use it for this specific purpose. You send it out to the entities. I don't even know, I can't even remember the process, but you send it out to the entities through a resolution and you say, we're gonna use this money for this. And you can do that. You can also, like Mr. Hutt said, you can also, if you as a board feel like there's too much reserve funds, you can give some of that money back. Just understand that the very next year you may have to ask for a budget amendment to ask for that money back. I'm just saying be very cautious when you do that. Slow the ship is what I would say.
And that leads to something I'll make a simple comment on. When I first became aware of appraisal districts and, you know, the entire property taxation scheme, if you will, when I became a property owner, I was a bit miffed that elected officials would serve on these boards. I always thought, and if you're explaining it perfectly, there is a conflict of interest inherent, at least in that portion of it. And that's where divided loyalty comes in. I'm not speaking ill of anybody. I'm just saying that when I first found that out, I thought, that's interesting to me. I just didn't think it was proper. So I'm glad that you're bringing that up about, because I never even thought about fund balance and how, okay, where does your loyalty lie? Do you try to maximize what you give back to the entity you represent, or do you leave it here for contingencies? And sometimes those can be competing interests.
Yeah, and to that point, just be cautious. Like, take the whole thing and see it for what it is. This board absolutely has within its power to do budget resolutions, budget amendments. Budget amendments typically are asking the entities, hey, give me a little more money. I'll say that that's not a real popular concept. It has not been popular in the past. Obviously, giving money to them, they're gonna receive that with joy. Finding that balance is important. Just use your mind.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
It's interesting, the interplay here. And one of the difficulties is with respect to your job is the appraisal district has a budget year this year in. The county has October? Pardon me?
I think they're in your,
Well, the point is you've got different balancing access to when they expect funds. The school district is the end of August, which means that they're expecting what you want from them pretty quickly. And in the year that we were asked, the school district was asked to pony up some money, give it to the state because we were quote overpaid, and the blame was placed on the appraisal district. Rightly or wrongly, that's the way it was explained to us. So in the following year, when we asked if we could have the overage that was in the fund balance that rightfully belonged to us, they told us no. It was a little hard to swallow. You got a balancing act. I don't know how to tell you to do it. But I do caution you. And are you about to make a motion?
No, there's no more time.
There's no motion.
Okay.
So discussion. We're not making
I heard an awful lot of, I want to.
There's no more.
any sort of feedback.
Just for information purposes, kind of give us an indication of where people are headed, or at least one person.
Sure, yes, sir.
Thank you for that input.
Sure. Yes, sir. Speaking about the, under sale budget, last thing
Yeah, I have a couple of items on budget.
So I talked to the judge, and the judge, well, let me back that up. I spoke with the auditor. The auditor said that, you know, we definitely could change our fund balance. He said that most had a 2-month operating fund balance. I wrote that up to the judge, and the judge told me that, you know, they also have an emergency fund balance that they keep operating. That includes our money too. So I feel confident that, you know, unless something just happens and they're just destroyed completely, and then, you know, then we're at the point where we're all worried about money. So I feel pretty confident that we are. I know Michaela, when she was here from the school district, has also asked. I ran some numbers on what we were looking at giving back to the school district and to the city. It would be, from last year's budget, it would mean that the city would save about $60,000. The county would save about $45,000 from last year that they paid. The school district was quite a bit more. I believe it was 100 and something that they would save. So in a year where it's tight for all government entities, being a good partner with them would be great. Go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the items that I just want to bring up to your attention, the reason I asked for more for IT replacement is we have servers that go through additional warranty events. And so I just got an off the cuff thing from Colin. We're in a server that we need an extended warranty. If we go out of warranty and something happens, and then we're buying a $60,000, $80,000 server. I would respectfully ask that you consider keeping it at the 25.
Is it 25,000 for the whole warranty?
No, it's an additional 10 from last year.
But what's the 10? What's the IT replacement from last year? What did that go to?
15,000.
15. What did it go to? To 25. I know, but it was, we spent 15,000 last year. When did we spend it on?
Oh,
Because
I
so
don't-
we need another. We need 15,000 this year on something.
Yeah,
Plus
we need
another 10,000.
We need an additional 10 for the warranty. If I don't have the information in front of me as far as what we spent, but
So the warranty's not annual, it's something that comes up.
it comes
5
up
years.
every periodically. Like if you can run a 2 or 3 year warranty, and then you can run another 5.
That's what he's asking, why the increase, because we're not in a warranty year, it's a 2-year warranty, 3-year warranty.
Yeah,
a warranty
yeah.
year.
And we spend so we still need the 15,000 for something because we have a yearly cost that we
Again, this is items that come up that are part of like IT replacement. We replace things. Computers go bad. We have to buy them.
Do we use an outside contractor service something that does IT work?
We use Colin at the county. Colin's our guy. Colin is our in-between between us and Dell. He lets us know what we need, and then we put out a purchase order for that item, and then he replaces that item. For things like servers, he's the go-between for sure because he knows really how long that server is going to last, and it gives us information on when we need to replace it and when we need to up the warranty. So we're just relying on him. We don't have an outside source necessarily.
We are to that point where Colin's going to work up an MOU between us and the county.
And for clarification, Colin.
Colin is the Colin
Colin.
Jackson is the
Colin
IT
Jackson.
Thank you so much.
IT guy from the county.
Okay, it's not everybody here. knows.
Okay, sorry. So Colin Jackson's the IT guy from the county.
He works for the county, he's a salary person at the county, but we're working memorandum of understanding so that we can use the services of what you're telling me.
Yeah, so we just have a better definition. He said that as long as he's been here, there hasn't been one, so.
So do we make additional payments to him for anything? Does he set up the computers for us and just?
Not always necessarily. Like he does the in between for the purchasing.
And then we as the appraisal district, we get the computers or printers or whatever, we set it up ourselves, or is there somebody else that comes in?
No, we set it up ourselves for the most part. There are times where we have to call them and, like, can you look at this? And, oh yeah, plug that wire into this.
Yeah.
Or I can do it from my side. Because we're tied into the county through the fiber optic network, there's like a firewall that's inherent. And so we even have to call whenever Harris Government is doing something behind the scenes, we have to call Colin to let him open up a gateway so that they can be in our system. And so
In my experience, whenever you're dealing with the software companies, though, a lot of times that kind of work is covered. I'm just trying to, 15,000, I get the extended warranty part of the 10, the IT replacement, and I understand like those big printers and stuff are very expensive, but general computers, in my experience, are not. And
the
so
last computer, just to give you a good example, the last computer we had to replace for the boardroom was nearly $7,500 because of its ability to push out the data to the TV and the projector. I'm just saying.
When does that 300? I have a rendition from the auditor that has the list of all of what we have in IT. I got that today, he emailed that to me, I'll send that out to the board, so everybody has an idea about what we have.
So if I could continue, I can give you the utilities, what we spent this year, and you can project that out on 12-month schedule to see where that number's coming in. As far as the,
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
So I apologize.
Yeah.
From my understanding, what are the utilities? Was it electricity, water, trash?
electricity, water, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Electricity, water, telephone, yeah.
So that like,
Oh, no, telephone's under a different line item.
Maybe does that like include internet? I don't know if that's covered by the county or something.
No, it does not.
Okay.
I can get you those, the point is I can get you the number of what we spent thus far, promulgate that out to 12 months, and then you can get a good idea of where I came up with the number. Building and grounds maintenance. Again, I'll show you what we spent last year, and you can do your numbers on a 12-month basis. Education, meals, hotels. Again, I went down $5,000 because we did spend less this last cycle.
Can we do this?
I went from 15 to 10.
Okay.
I would just ask that, let me see what I spent there as well. And then you can decide if you want to go down to the 2. Legal services, again, as it's related to this combined committed fund, that you want to do something over here with the committed fund balance, and then you're relying on that for legal services. Historically, what we've seen over the last couple of years, 50,000 is unreasonable. It's not in step with what's actually happening, even for the current. The great news, on a good news basis for legal services, the number of lawsuits, I think we only have 3 that are set for trial. So we've been kicking lawsuits out the door. And so that number, or the general trend for the lawsuit portion, the associated, like I've talked about this before, you have to get an expert witness. That's usually an appraiser. You're spending $10,000 or $15,000 on an appraisal. It's crazy, right? But we have to defend ourselves if we think the value's right. The good news is we don't take most of those to court. And as a result, hopefully this trend will go down. I don't think 50,000, I think that's a bridge too far. Again, I would ask you to consider that. We talked about this last time. Ask your fellow board member who has done this math with going into and getting a car, and trying to do that out as opposed to just paying somebody their insurance, basically covering the wear and tear on the vehicle. That's where this auto lease is coming into play. I would just ask you to consider that, talk to your fellow board member and flesh that out. I don't think that's a wise thing to do. In fact, comparatively, I'll try to get you some information of what other districts do in light of this, like what they actually do. And I'll give you what they spent on that kind of stuff, all right? Before
So
you make it.
you use the word lease. Use the word lease.
I'm
and
sorry,
then we asked last time, you said,
It's for insurance. But
and how do you pay that? You pay that out in a lump sum at the beginning of the year?
It's done every paycheck. A little bit of this money comes out, right? There's a portion of that.
Yes.
Yeah, so every paycheck, there's one, what is it, every 2 months, twice a month. So 1/26 of this number is in that thing.
And it's my understanding that we pay this money plus mileage.
Correct, sir. And that's typical of the appraisal district industry. Again, I'll get you the information. You can make your decision. I think if you took this away, you would be, it'd just be doing a disservice to future competition for people that would want to be appraisers. They'd be asking you, where's the district truck that I need to drive because you're not paying me for this?
So where does the mileage come from? What line item is that?
Mileage is, I think it's gonna be, in the auto expenses. So you have auto expenses that is here, but you also have, so these are two different documents, obviously. The second document has to do with payroll. And so this is a payroll related item. And the mileage is actually on the auto expenses budgeted item. So if you were to try to take this out, 12,600 in the proposed, it would be 16,800 of the personnel services, which is 616,998. So 16,000 of that amount is in the personnel service. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do we have, how do we report, do they do time sheets on mileage, or how does that happen?
Not timesheets, they record their
Well,
mileage.
how do they report their mileage?
They just start when they start the day. Like, there are appraisers that they will just start the day wherever they're at, go to the neighborhood before they ever come in. They spend 2 or 3 hours out in the field during those times, and they're just marking their mileage, and they just turn it in on a mileage sheet, right? Yeah.
So I like
Yes, ma'am.
back to answer a question, if I may, and this was some documents that were given to us on May 9th, 2024. And our utilities are AT&T Mobile, City of Rockport, and some other utilities. I don't know what those are. But we were given, I'm just sharing with you guys, we were given these actual snapshots.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
You're, I think that runs through April, and so if you wanted to, run those out through the year, you might give you some data to do that.
So, and that's a good point.
Well, there's some actual-
That's a good point,
giving us
Colleen, because you can run.
the actuals, I think, right?
I talked about the utilities, the education meals hotel. I think that you can run that figure out as well.
Right.
Or you probably have to just look at the annual, because sometimes those are heavy loaded in the fall, or sometimes they're heavy loaded in the spring.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the sheet that you have right now, that's the one.
And so you guys are interested in that, I think you can give them something like this, and that's kind of a snapshot, like.
Yes, ma'am. So what's AT&T mobility? Is that just fixed lines?
AT&T Mobility,
Is that-
back to you. Is that the service that we take to run the iPads in the field?
Yes.
Okay, that's a service that because we have a data pad in the field, so it's what this is right now.
Here.
Oh,
This
I'm
one
sorry,
right
it's not the
This is-
I'm sorry.
There's the long, that's the long,
But Mike has provided all that data to us, I think it was in May of some time.
Yeah,
when the data
before.
set-
all right.
right,
Certainly.
something like that. So if you go through your emails, you probably should have some of it, you can always provide. When we're trying to flesh this out, I think the actuals really do help us in terms of.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you have that email, and I guess I do too.
Yeah, I'll give it-
Can you please send that email out to the entire board, especially because maybe Mr. Oker does not have it?
Yeah, that's good.
I think I sent that before. No, it was before you came to the board, so
You may not have to-
it may have not. It's village. All right,
Okay.
so.
I mean, just understand that I think the overall line item, if you just try to pull up on the yoke and pull back and see how much I've asked for, at the bottom right, it says 2.7%. If you look at that, it seems plausible. The delta change would be we didn't have any expenses in 25 for building, like that building project. That's $47,000, to the good. So that number would definitely be affected. So that's good that we're not spending that 25. But again, I haven't asked for a really big increase here. Just consider everything I've said. That's all I would say. Again, it's well within your duty set to mitigate a budget. I'm gonna caution you again with the fund balance. Those things have been in place for a long time. Please move slowly when you want to give money back. also, if you want to assign some of this money. I know, there's been some things recently discussed at the last meeting, as far as comp time and buying some of that time down. I know that's not, you can put some of those monies to buy some of that time down, for the comp time.
Thank you for reminding me. I wanted to bring that up. Thank you. First of all, when I asked you, you all saw the email that came out with comp time. The comp time you had people marked as certain day rate in terms of a certain rate for all of it. We figured it based upon one pay rate. But my question back to you was, if somebody did comp time in 18, we need to pay them for their 18 salary comp time. If somebody did comp time in 2019, we need to pay that comp time based upon the 2019 salary. We don't need to wait until comp time builds up to whenever they leave, because they didn't take out, because I asked you about one of the appraisers, and he had a lot of comp time, but I don't think he built up all his comp time last year. So I want.
It was over time for sure.
Right.
The answer to that question was comp time was built up over time.
So I'd like to see, and this is what I would like to do.
I don't know, like what you're asking. I don't know. I'm not an auditor. I don't know how that works. I just know that that person is due that.
We'll just take whatever he made in the comp time for like 2019, whatever his day rate is there. We can just figure that out. What I would like to do is, we saw that we have some person with.
I don't know that that's,
I have a question.
Are you confused? If I can, so.
Internal,
Interesting. Okay.
example, so for the annual basis, it should be booked.
I
It should
wonder if
not
that-
just be presented with a bold number or any sort of number as of May 31st some year. This is what we got. That should have been approved. Add it up. And if we're doing proper bookkeeping, that would start the day they started. And at the end of every month, we should know what they approved. And that should be part of the bookkeeping process. If it's not, then that's probably a different ball of wax, but that's part of bookkeeping.
Yeah,
And we do have a bookkeeper.
yeah, we have this that's presented, like we have a record of all of this, of all the months. And so I believe we can do the calculation that you're asking for.
Right. Because what I'd like to do
What
is.
was one of the other things that this board talked about was that to encourage those members to start taking off. We're just coming off, I mean, we're still in the appeal season, but one of the things is like you encourage those people to take the time off so that you don't have to pay them. But again, you asked for the information, we presented it the way that you did. If you want in a different format, we can present that for you.
Because I'd like to present to you guys what it is. It's like, we've had this comp time. I mean, it's a lot. It's like, 16,000, 18, and it's quite a large number. We have a fund balance now. It seems to me, I spoke with Mr. McClellan. It seems like this is a problem we've had. I'd like to just not kick this can down the road any farther, and let's deal with it this year. And I can't imagine that our employees will be angry at us for giving, the two employees will be angry at us for giving them that money, or forget that they're due that money. Be a nice little thing. But I would like to,
I agree with you that this is not the first board. I've had discussions over 2 or 3 boards about this thing, like, hey, this is happening,
Is it proper to pay the way you were just talking about with the time and the money in, say, 2020, to pay that time based on the year? You could, or whenever they're getting comp time, are they accruing the money itself, or are they just accruing like the additional hours or whatever for them to take at a later date? Such that if they take it at a later date, they've had a raise at that point, do they get that higher rate whenever they finally take that time? I don't want to get in trouble with not paying people what they're owed.
So,
I understand.
One second. I thought I was doing it the right way. So if I'm not correct, I mean,
My understanding of how comp time works is that you're accruing the hours similar to that of like vacation, where you take it and you still continue to get paid what you're being paid at that time, not what you would have been paid. So like if one of them that has a lot of comp time, they go to take 2 or 3 weeks off, their check is gonna be for the time that they're like at 2024 rates, not, they're not gonna get a, they're not gonna get
That makes
paid
perfect sense.
paid increase.
Mr. Roper, do you have any thought on
Correct or not? It is
it?
correct.
Well, so, we'll go ahead and then check. Go ahead, yes, ma'am. Ms.
No,
Barlow.
I'm just stating the fact that what Kevin said is correct, but the inherent problem there, and that's what we're trying to solve is it's the source of the problem. That you collected at this lower rate, and then all of a sudden we get out 4 years or whatever, and now you have this higher rate, and you get to take it at that rate. That's what we're trying to stop.
Right, so it would,
So it's
I
gonna get
think
paid
it
out
would be
at the
more
higher rate.
proper to go ahead and pay it down now, get rid of it, so that it's not just accruing at these higher rates. And then maybe going forward, we address it on a year-to-year basis, so that it's not an issue.
That's right, and I'd like to make just a second observation on that. If we can budget for it now, we know it and get it paid out while we're prepared versus the employee who puts in a 2-week notice, if I wake up and now we get money.
Because that's exactly what happened with the Canton Fire Department how many years
That's
ago.
right. That makes them on the payroll for, and that ties our hands in getting RFQ, solicitation for to fill the position, because we don't have the money that, we don't have the budget that it's still being paid out.
Mr. Wright, and then.
Just one thought, if I were in your shoes, I would contact the auditor and or his IRS contacts and say, what's our directed approach, so you don't give somebody a liability or take one on yourself.
Advice, Thank you, sir.
All right, Larry Harris.
Yes, sir.
I finally can say. So I'm having script, and the way it is, we get the HR department, we should already have it written up in the HR and file it for you. Now, what you do, because I work where I work, you could do it on a payout basis, it could save you your matching parts of what you would do with all their other benefits and all their other stuff. So if you paid it out of your tax lump sum, it would be better for the entities and cost them less. But it should be used up according to the HR manual that they've all signed and agreed to. That has the terms and conditions.
Personal
Before
policy.
we do anything, we should probably look at it direction. And where I worked at, if you didn't do it in 12 months, you lost.
I was gonna just piggyback off what he said. Personal policy, you should have a copy of that. If you need a copy of that, just reach out to Nancy. She'll send you one. Read it. If you need information, there's some shoulds and shalls that you just need to be careful of. Some things like vacation, you can't hold any more than 30 hours. You gotta use it or you lose it more than 30 hours. Sick time, there is no directive. Comp time.
160 days. It's 160 days.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 160 days. It's just that we don't have anybody that high, so we've never raised that limitation. But,
Thank goodness.
and then comp time, it has another directive, but it's loosely written. This board has within its power to, in the future year, to write that personnel policy in a way that you want to do it, so that you don't have this problem in the future.
So, I have a question, real quick, and I'll let you go.
So what is the, because this comp time's new to me, I never worked at a place that had.
Sure.
So I never interfaced with it. Is there a set among the employees as to how they want to use? Are they trying to retire early and then give an extra 2-3 months salary? Is that kind of been, why do they want to accrue so much comp time?
They don't want to, they have to out of a duty set. And I talked about this a couple of times ago, maybe. I can't remember the meetings, but they're the most dutiful employees that I have. And so they're the people that are going to stay just to make sure it gets done.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
My experience, is big in the government agency.
And yeah, and to piggyback, I would say that I don't think either one of them would be objectionable to just pay it out, to get it down. And then from this point out, just try to manage that to an acceptable level. you know, like, but this is also hand in hand with, you know, asking for that half of the employee, you know, we're trying to get that, we just got a lot of work. I mean, that's, yeah.
Right, and at some point you have to pay the piper, whether it's paid out now, cash, or whether it's, you have somebody retired, you've only budgeted so much for so many positions, so you go without for 2 or 3 months, or whatever.
Right.
Which, you know, neither one is, you know, the greatest thing in the world, but pick your poison.
And on the level of comp time, I do want to address the employee benefits. I do, there's certain things that I'd like to see changed. I think I would like, going on here, I'd like to see, I think the vacation days are a little bit slim for our employees. I'd like to see them have a little bit greater vacation opportunity for vacation days. There is a kind of move in, on just chapter 33 of the Texas Government Code. If you guys want to look at it, it's a construction code. Here's a copy, and all it is just it tells you how you interpret the law. The part that I kind of like is where it has the modals shall, may not. These things, I think, as we go through, looking at some of the things we're doing, those are going to be important. That's what I gave you. Yes, I have that on record, so we'll refer back to it. So,
Construction of what?
the construction code. It's the construction of the code. That's how the code is constructed.
Oh, gotcha,
Works.
gotcha.
Not actual building.
Construction, yeah.
That's why I asked.
Okay, so if we have anything else on, what I want me to add this, I want you to see that it's, okay, so presentation of the first draft of possible 2025 Aransas County Appraisal District budget. Let's close that. Let's open up discussion of items. The items the Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors would like to see on future agenda.
Yes. Okay,
All right, let's
future
go.
agenda. I've talked to Chairman Hutt. Please, I need y'all to hear this. Please be very aware that you have some statutory deadlines coming up, and they're fast approaching. September 15th is a fast approaching deadline. We have a newspaper that is now only 1 day a week that it publishes, and they require 7 days notice of whatever you're going to post. There's also a mandatory 10-day window prior to that meeting. So when you do all that math together, it's important that you're 20 days out in advance, 21 days out in advance of that meeting time, and you cannot miss that deadline. And my second suggestion, and that's for the reappraisal plan on or before September 15th, I think is what the thing says. The second thing is the budget. The budget, it is my recommendation to this board that you don't muddy the waters. The budget, you also have to have a public hearing for that. Both require a public hearing, both require publishing, both require an advance of 7 days to that date and a 10-day window. So keep that in mind, do the math, get in front of this. It is also my suggestion to this board, because I've done it both ways and it was terrible when I tried to do the budget and the reappraisal plan all in once. It's my suggestion that you have 2 different meetings, don't muddy the waters, keep it very simple. It is also, you're working in good faith to try to come the first draft, second draft, okay, this is where we want to end up. So that when you get to that day, there's a budget resolution, there's a public hearing, you're already set on that number of that budget. Just be resolved as a board that you've done that, okay? You don't need these first 2 drafts, you don't need that. The public hearing, you do need all the time. The second one is the reappraisal plan. So my suggestion is that you as a board be very thoughtful on how much of the reappraisal plan you really want to chew off this year, because you have a fast approaching deadline and you have to have it done.
Yes, ma'am?
Policy.
What?
Policy.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Anything else you'd like to see? And I'll get out of this possible dates.
I would like to, and I'm not putting any pressure on anyone, And so I want to respond a little bit to Mr. Wright's comments earlier. We have had a lot of crazy back-to-back meetings. We are behind in the minutes. We like getting minutes in the meetings.
We've been giving those, have we been giving those meetings minutes
With
to?
the exception of the last meeting, I still have.
The last minutes of the meeting, I thought was August 10th. I mean, I apologize, April. So I don't know where I guess I don't know what I've been doing with it, but
We can just check on that.
Well,
That's all I just want to bring up.
yeah, but
And
last,
maybe I haven't gotten anything, I don't know, maybe they did, but
the last meeting, you were elected as the secretary. So last meeting and this meeting, it's, I believe it's your
the
responsibility.
last minutes in the meeting that I have, that we have, and in fact, we have not approved them because they were not correct.
I agree with
Was
you.
April 10th.
That is a correct statement.
Okay, so have we not met since April 10th? Yes.
Tons of times.
Okay, so where are those minutes?
Well, they're not on the,
Remember, he, at one point, he emailed us, and said that I did not have to do the minutes, that he was.
yeah,
gonna go in
well,
and
it's,
sign them.
it's, again,
But it was this last session
it's
that I
not-
was told
it's-
that I had to do, I already was told
Well,
last meeting to do the minutes of
Do
the
we,
meeting.
if I can, do we have, so we have, we have meetings, do we have recordings of those meetings? I will, do you have any minutes by chance
She-
besides April 10th?
she has, have
Which
you,
ones, where do you have up to?
I will check them, look and see what I have as
Yeah.
far as minutes are concerned, I can read. I'm up to date, but don't.
That's okay. And if you don't have any, let me know which ones we don't have. And if I have to, like in those,
That's all
we
I'm
can
saying
go
is-
back. We want to honor that
Yeah,
request.
I wanna address the public, and he's brought that to our attention, that
Yes, ma'am.
we've had several meetings with no minutes. And so I wanna make sure that I'm just plugging that hole.
Okay.
I'm not trying to
Also,
tear a
you
bigger
could-
hole
you
with
may have
anybody,
well
I just
recorded-
need to plug the hole.
But there's no
That-
record.
Right, I understand that.
Sure, but some, most of the minutes.
Do you have it?
No, you haven't sent me minutes that I know of, but
Not
if you
for the
have,
last two meetings, but prior to that.
yes, ma'am, you have. Let me find out what we have. I'll send an email out. We'll let everybody know. So by the next time we have a meeting, we'll be better.
Okay, and if you don't mind, so then can I send the stuff that needs to be corrected for the April 10th?
Yes,
To
put
you
on
and
the
you'll
next
just
one.
send it to her?
Send
Since
it
she
to
already
me.
has the format, she can just make the small changes.
Ma'am, you can send that directly to her if
I
you
can
would like,
send it.
you're the secretary, so you don't.
and to that point, whatever meeting you have next, can you please put an agenda item to identify the previous meetings so that you can accept the minutes from all the previous meetings, because that hasn't happened.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I don't know when you're at,
Again,
Okay.
we haven't been in charge of the agenda, so.
So let's,
but you were in charge of taking the minutes of the meeting, or no?
No, it's
Since
up to,
when?
it's up to the secretary and
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
I understand. So do we, yes, ma'am, I heard you, and I need to, I dismiss it, I apologize.
Not a problem.
Mr. Upper, do you have anything you'd like to see on the future agenda?
Nothing that's pressing now. We've got so much in front of us. I'd like to just, I'd like to keep it simple.
We are going to have, since we don't have any letters of engagement with law firms, I reached out, I was looking for law firms in the area. There's a gentleman, I was looking at some of our billables, it seemed like people were driving down from Austin to sign documents, to turn in documents. I thought that was a little bit of a waste of kind of sort of taxpayer dollars. I did find, I spoke with another lawyer who works with an entity here. He recommended a gentleman by the name of, I'm gonna have to spell it, you might wanna look this up. Thomas Gwosdz. What? Gush out of Victoria. Okay. He's gonna come and he wrote he actually sent a letter of engagement offer, and I sent it back to him and asked him to make some changes on it, but he's gonna come and present, just since we don't have a lawyer, just to maybe get some different options, keep it closer. I reached out to, along those same lines, I reached out to the Texas Appraisal District Association, and there is not Bickerstaff, Lineberger, whoever it is, they have a lawyer out of Corpus too. I was just going to, since we don't have any letters of engagement, I was going to solicit offers just to see what's out there going forward.
You know that name, right?
No, sir. I do have your email, and I will send you the email that the lady, she sent me. But,
No motion attached.
it's a female, and that's all I know. She's got a Hispanic name.
Did Lombard or Dozie? Was that law?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Linebarger, good.
Yes.
So just so nobody's caught unawares, if we have any interaction with Thomas Gooch, and he says he knows me, that's true, but I don't have a conflict of interest, I have no business association with him. I've never contracted his services, I just know him from Victoria, so, for everybody's mind, views on that front.
Okay, maybe we can use your input when it comes to this issue. All right, so, in the discussion, that's the only thing. Thank you guys, appreciate your time. And y'all have a wonderful weekend. The meeting is adjourned. It is now 7:14. Thank you, Madam Secretary, your breath of fresh air. Thank you all.
Did y'all say when the next meeting was?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
Okay. And we need to, I'll get with you to make sure we have the dates correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, have a good evening. Hey, thank you so much. Just email me and
I'll do it, I sure will, just I got a minor changes.